All right, welcome to another episode of the WP Crowd. My name is Roy, as usual, and today we are recording a cool episode that I've been trying to get together for a little while here. Go ahead and do some introductions. James, why don't you go first?
I'm James Tryon, lead ambassador of Wapoos, and run Easily Amused.
Nice, and Megan.
I'm Megan Haynes. I'm an independent contractor, designer, developer, and talking head, I guess, today.
Nice. So today we have a conversation which I've actually wanted to talk about for a while. We've actually tried recording this a few times. In fact, I think we tried to record it once and James was on, and then we ended up just talking about it without recording for like an hour and a half anyway, as we do. But it's cannabis. So basically the legalization of marijuana and how that kind of industry is going to be growing and how WordPress kind of plays a role in all that. There's a whole bunch to talk about because it is a new industry. So I'm curious, let's just start from the beginning. Have any of you guys, or any of you two, done anything WordPress related with a cannabis related business yet?
No, I've looked at it because Florida is getting ready to have a big increase. We passed with a 71% medical use this year, so our state is just now gearing up. They're trying to get legal permits spread out. A lot of startup classes right now, like start your own business. A lot of online courses are popping up for this type of thing, but there's not been any. I've not had any direct clients yet, but we definitely see it happening.
How about you, Megan? Have you dealt with any businesses related to the?
I've started to get some requests from clients to start looking into to sort of pop up shops for this. There are some industries around Ottawa and Canada specifically that deal with medical, but then it's that trickled down to full recreational legal type thing that we're hitting now. There's a factory right outside of town, actually, Tweed, who've been doing a great job at doing their medical supply. Though they kind of have started to reach out towards what's a better system for doing this. And it's nice that people are looking at WordPress for it.
Yeah, and so you bring up a good topic, and that's the whole medical recreational. So let's kind of just touch on that. I know a little bit here, Megan, obviously in Canada, so a little bit different, but in the US, we are starting to have states legalize it. So actually legalize it for recreational use. I'm in California. We are fully legal, but not it's not going to be sold retail till 2018, so that's going to be coming up next year for me. Some states have had it legal for a while now, like Colorado, where their business around it has been booming. They've made a bunch of money off of it, so other states are kind of following suit. And then you have states like Florida, which are bringing up the rear and just starting to legalize, I think, medical, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been medical legal here for quite a while, but the system is such a joke that it's like, okay, just make it recreational. So basically in the US it's federal illegal, but every state is kind of just starting to say, we have our own rules about this, let's just make it legal here. Megan, how does it work in Canada, do you know?
So I believe the plan right now for Canada, and this is like political quiz right now for me, is that it's going to be federally legal. And it's up to the provinces to regulate and deal with how to deliver that in a legally compliant way. So it's almost a little bit switchy. Like each province has been dealing with this in different ways. It's widely known that in BC, people will smoke on the streets. Nobody cares. The police have more important things to deal with. But it's still up to each province to sort out the logistics. However, it's sort of like, bam, this is going to happen, so start doing it. So all the provinces are sort of running around now, figuring it out.
So it sounds like we're not too far off in where we are in as far as the state, country to country. Obviously, some of our states are fully recreational legal, so there's huge business around it already that's, again, completely legal for that state. So now let's try to bring WordPress into the equation. How do you guys think WordPress will affect this industry? Or what kind of solutions do you think need to be created for supporting this industry?
The biggest one that I see is just credit card processing, because I know with it being illegal, the federal level here in the States, that a lot of banks, a lot of it has to all be done through cash. So having having some way to collect credit card or pay for things through credit card or other ways would be pretty useful. And I think until the government fixes that, that's a big showstopper for what we're doing. And it's going to make a lot of their websites more brochure style sites than actual e-commerce sites.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see if, again, this is almost any kind of substance that's not, just not anything that's kind of in that gray area. But I'm curious to see if e-com is going to become a thing with cannabis, because I know that like in the US, you can find sites that will sell alcohol, but I know that it's a really weird, there's some weird rules around like shipping alcohol, obviously, and you have to confirm the person is, of the proper age when they buy it, things like that. So I'm curious if there's going to be some type of like system for that. I'm also weirded out because it's illegal federally here, just shipping in general, going from state to state. Even if you go from a state that's legal to another state that's legal, you're still crossing over, right? So I'm curious what that's going to entail.
That's exactly it. It's so shady right now, and that's unfortunate because a lot of smaller people, they can't even take money. They have to go around to a weird payment processor or something. So there's no actual structure helping businesses right now, and I think that's a big issue.
Well, it's going to be really shady with credit card processing, especially like, I know that there's like certain credit card processors that like, for example, I think the focus on like the porn industry, right? Like, and those aren't just your typical banks, and they charge an excruciating amount. Like, while PayPal charges you like what, like a couple percent, these are like much, much higher, double, triple that. But if you want to create a website or a business around adult material like that, that's what you're kind of stuck with. So I'm guessing that's going to be the first thing that's going to happen for marijuana and cannabis too, which is really unfortunate for, again, smaller businesses who now with it legalized might have something cool. I'm really thinking about like, even if as it becomes illegal and legal to sell, I'm guessing I'm hoping it'd be kind of cool to see a lot of like mom and pop size like farmers, like urban farmers who have their own way of growing something, right? And and maybe they don't have the quantity to sell to dispensaries, so they want to sell on their own. I'm curious if that's going to be an industry that we see popping up, like small like what do you call it? Like, there's like wineries that
like craft beer.
Yeah, exactly,
or
like craft beer. That's
even
really
local
great.
honey. Local honey, you might have one beehive in your backyard, and you might live close to orange groves or something, so you could sell that. But I do see that happening. But unfortunately, in Florida, they're not even allowing like herbs. Like everything has to be concealed and put through vaporizers or set up as tinctures. Like there's no green allowed to be burned or sold. Now that's not what our amendment said. So John Morgan is suing the state right now, trying to allow that. But right now, there's nothing that you can do that's technically smokable in the state of Florida, and you're not allowed to grow your own, unlike Colorado or California. So that's maybe
Wait, so if you're not allowed to have or sell green, how does it work then? Like what?
They sell capsules and vape pens and extracts, and so I don't know. The idea was here,
but those were green at some point in their life, right?
Yeah. So that means they all have to be processed. And the funny thing is, most of them are processed and brought in through Canada, which is really dumb. But nothing against Canada, but like Florida, anything grows. I mean, we just cut our grass because we have weeds that are taller than the door. Like we have to. So I don't see why we can't. And I meant grass weeds, not marijuana weeds. But the thing is, it's all kind of like a money game. They're even limiting the dispensaries to seven grow ops here in Florida. So I know Nevada just legalized it. They have like a 45% tax on recreational, and they were out of marijuana within like the first day. They were ran out. So now they have, more will be ready, but I do see that being a problem. Like you can't grow your own, and then there's a super limited supply of where you can buy it. So it's going to create this high supply and demand, and then they're going to tax it like crazy, which I think they should tax and improve the schools. But I don't know. There's too many people trying to make money from this higher up than allowing people to actually get help from it or start their own business from it. Or it feels like they're just in the way when this could be a very good industry for local business and cities.
Yeah, I like the analogy of microbrews because that's huge, especially in the WordPress realm. I mean, people love their microbrews here. Every time I go to a WordCamp, there's always someone with their 6 bottles that they just made. So it'd be interesting to see if one day it's like, hey, I just grew this batch and did this and it grew it this way.
So Canada's actually, and this is one thing that's kind of neat, and I like how it's coming down from the federal level, is by forcing it to be not just medical, but we're going full legalization. It actually includes you can grow a certain number of plants at home. There's no limit. I think it's a huge amount of actual leaf on you or bud on you and such and such. We're not approaching it in the let's keep the barriers up way. We're approaching in the it's a supply and demand, and if there are people who want to grow some stuff at home, as long as it's done safely, because that's sort of the approach.
Well, I mean, that's how it is in California, and that's how it has been. If you had a medical card, for like the longest time now, I think it was like 6 plants you could grow in your house, and if you have 3 people in your house, that's 18 plants you can have now. The problem is you can't sell it, right? Because it's not legal to sell. It's for personal use only, unless you get another license, I think, in which case you can sell to dispensaries. But you can't sell to the consumer. Basically, you have to either use or sell to like a medical that's government run kind of place. And not really government run, but
Like, I know why they do that, and it makes a lot of sense, because when you're selling things that people eat and consume, there has to be providence in some way, shape, or form. That's why it's like you can't just make beer and then sell it to all your, slap a label, throw it online, and call it good. Some, we've got laws against that. The food laws will come in against you. You'll see a lot of people at craft fairs, like, selling muffins and things, and they hit the same point that a lot of people in this industry will, which is eventually you have to go above board. You can't cook out of your kitchen anymore. It's illegal, but it's also kind of gross when you think about it. That same thing is happening here as well in this industry.
I'm curious what kind of regulation there will be from someone like our FDA on like edibles. And I know it's still state by state, but once it inevitably becomes federal, right? Like once the federal government says, okay, now it's legal, and people start selling from one state nationally, right? They distribute their food, their edibles, their goods. There's going to be so much government oversight for all of that. It's going to be crazy. Like, I know there's going to be, it has to. I look at, in the US, we just had a crazy stint with the FDA in our vape. Like, if you're a vapor and you want juice, it now has to be like FDA approved or something. And that costs a ridiculous amount of money. So all of the boutique vape shops are now out of business because they can't pay that amount. They can't pay whatever god awful amount it is to get FDA approved in a lab or something.
Yeah, that's actually a big deal right now because my brother-in-law sells hand-carved tobacco pipes, and he would get a bunch of tobacco from different distributors, mix up his own blend, and call it, hey, this is the Dagner blend of X. And it's really just 2 or 3 different pre-made tobaccos blended together. Now we technically can't give that out or sell that anymore because it was like, it has to run through FDA and get it checked and make sure what's in it is what they say that's in it. Now, I'm a little torn on this. One side of me wants very small government and very small interaction, but the other side says, oh, you mean that 19% label is always going to be 19%? You know, that idea of buying an edible that is exactly what it says. Like if you're using it for medical use, let's say you have MS and you really are dosing yourself and using this legitimately, and everyone just makes what they want or puts whatever label they want to try to sell their thing the best, well, you're really kind of hurting the customer at that point. So part of me wants that regulation just so that no one's, so from the medical side, so first you're not wasting your money and secondly you're getting the proper dosage. But I also don't really want Big Brother in there looking at everyone's stuff all the time either. So like, where's that happy medium that makes sure this works? Or maybe, because I have seen a lot of these little like testers lately. I've been watching probably more Vice documentaries than I need to, talking about cops and like, seeing if someone's high while they're driving. They have these new like breathalyzers and these new THC testers. Like, well, I want to see that technology grow. And then have proof of what the packaging says, and set some tighter regulations and maybe some fines. Maybe they don't come in and check everything, but you're going to spot check. And if your labels are correct, then you're cool. But if you're not, your labels are wrong, well, then now maybe all your stuff gets checked, maybe like an audit or something.
Exactly. I think that's a fair balance between big government, little government, making sure we have a free creative industry, but people aren't selling random things to people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, so kind of trying to bring this back into the WordPress realm since we are the WP crowd. From a consulting point of view, I brought up briefly a comparison with the porn or adult industry, like that adult industry. I'm curious if there's going to be a taboo around the cannabis industry as it's emerging. Like I've gotten requests for adult sites to be built. People have asked me to build them, and I knew that like as soon as you go down that path, it's kind of hard to get out of. Like they're an interesting, it's an interesting kind of community, right? A lot of the people that work in that community kind of jump around, and I've known web developers who've worked for, big magazines and websites, and they've just jumped around from one adult to the other because once you have that on a professional level, once you have that on your resume, it's like, okay, now you're kind of tarred. You can't go from like Playboy to Disney. I don't think like there's going to be an issue there probably.
Unless there's been more acquisitions.
Yeah. On the consulting level too, it's like I can't unless I want to put that in my portfolio, and if I did, that's just going to attract more of the same. So do you think there's going to be that kind of thing going on with cannabis in that industry? Or do you think, hopefully, I guess from my point of view, hopefully not, but do you think it will be at least temporarily maybe?
What I foresee happening is everyone's going to want to try to get in business. There's going to be 2 or 3 theme forest themes that everyone tends to go towards, and then after the industry sort of plateaus, a lot of that first market kind of fails and clears out. I think at that point, people will start taking it a little bit more seriously. I think the biggest problem with this industry is just that level of maturity. And it doesn't need to be, tie-dyed and peace signs and like ridiculous looking like subculture. It could be real. It could be just like any other doctor's office or fine, a website that sells, fancy clothes or anything else. Like it needs to have this a little bit more of a grown-up feel to it to help the maturity along, to get away from that stigma. I was watching something on some ad on like Good Morning America type show, and they were talking about how your average middle-aged mom is more likely to smoke pot than their kids. And they had this whole thing in California of like these moms get together with their kids for play dates, and then they all they call it Medicaid, and then they would go and clean their houses and stuff. And the reporter's like, I don't know how I feel about this. In my day, it was always wine and Vicodin. Like Vicodin's a good choice. Like it's allowed to be like that's the thing that all moms did, 5, 10, 15 years ago while dealing with their kids. So even from the reporters, like, I don't know about this cannabis. This should be wine and Vicodin. So I mean that just shows you kind of the stigma and where we're coming from, and kind of have to clean that up.
I think you're right with the stigma, because there are designers, developers who are doing this now, but like you said, Roy, they just don't publicly advertise this because like attracts like and such. Like they're keeping it legitimized, and if we approach it like this is medicine, which it is, there are laws that govern medicine. There are compliance laws. There are privacy laws. There are actually lawsuits in Canada that have resulted because the federal government has sent unmarked or marked packages to people in the mail as a part of the medical program. So there's already some trickle down of the legalities of consumer privacy in this regard. And I think that is what's going to kill the first generation of weedpreneurs, is just being sloppy with the data and the laws and the requirements that they need to uphold.
Yeah, I agree. I think as we get into the websites that actually take on user data, like being able to log into your dispensary and then have an account there, potentially being able to buy stuff online. I don't know if HIPAA compliance, which is what we have here in the States, applies yet, but because it is a medical industry right now, and many states like Florida, it's literally a medical only kind of thing. I'd imagine that's going to happen, and so a lot of websites are going to be taken down, and a lot of fines are going to start getting thrown out because, it's like, hey, you are taking on user information, but you're not securing it in any shape or form, and then you're also like doing something with it. So, yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting thing, and I think people should be concerned about that from a consulting level. And
we have that in Canada too. It's not HIPPA, and it's but we have the PIPEDA Act, PIPEDA. It's the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act. And that supersedes medical and basically just says if you don't protect your electronic documents, you're liable. So already there's a base for digital malpractice here.
Yeah. So what about so how it works in Florida is you get a prescription or a recommendation, and that lasts for 45 days, and you can get it renewed in a dispensary, and then each subscription is allowed, like, I believe 3 renewals on it, and a certain amount of points that lasts a certain amount of days. So the thing is, each dispensary has to know how much you have been given, and that needs to be reported up. So if I go from one dispensary to another, let's say one day, now granted Florida only has 2 dispensaries, one in Clearwater, one in Tampa, both 2.5 hours away from me. But if I was to go to any of these real dispensaries right now, do they really have a system that tells the state how much that I've bought already today and how much more I can get? Like, I mean, that's a whole, backbone system that needs to be in place. And as this continues to grow and opens up, like, if they really are tracking that, well, then there needs to be a legitimate system. If not, then I don't know why they care.
That's exactly it. It's like, that's $1 million system for the way it's designed and properly implemented. It's not a $500 system or a let's get my website up and going, okay, I'm done, everything's good system.
It sounds like the new MLS, actually, if you start thinking about it. Like every state, every region, every dispensary laws, and they all have to tie to one system. That sounds like a horrible MLS.
It is. It's going to be. Yeah, it is going to be the new MLS. That's why I'm hoping from a consulting point of view that it again just becomes federally legal. So as business, I don't have to. We won't have to worry about it. We'll have to worry about things like HIPAA, and obviously like PCI compliance for taking payments. But you have to factor in a whole nother system or a whole nother thing just because one state says it's this way, then that's just going to be super annoying from consulting, trying to build a website that's, well, let's say a website that's beyond just a brochureware website, right? Beyond, hey, come find us, we're here. And that's it. Like, ooh, pretty website. Like, if they want actual functionality, that's going to be a pain in the butt. Cool. I don't know. I don't know what the future is going to come. I do know that it's interesting. And I do think, I think it'd be cool. I think there's going to be some cool websites that we see. And I don't know what the WordPress realm is lacking quite yet. I know a lot of people love niche things, right? Like plugins that are essentially other plugins to just say this is now for X, you know, because it's super niche, even though it's essentially the same code base. So I know we don't have much of that quite yet. There are a couple, I think WP Dispensary is one of them that exist, but there aren't too many, as James said. There's going to be a theme forest theme that probably all of them are going to download and use to build their websites or want for their websites. So I'm curious what's going to happen from a consulting and a web perspective. Obviously, there's going to have to be a lot of, we're going to have to watch the government and what they're doing on both our countries and see what happens. But yeah, it's definitely an interesting time to look at a new industry forming, which is from someone who, because we're so far into kind of where we are in our timeline for humanity, it's interesting to see a new industry kind of forming, period. Like a brand new, never been done before kind of thing. Like we have a lot of innovation and there's a lot of like new takes on things, but like, hey, here's the like, and I know marijuana's been around for a very, very, very long time. It's not like it's just like, oh, this is a new plant we've just discovered. But as far as an industry around it, it's kind of brand new, which is really cool.
And this is a unique opportunity to watch the demand cause laws and society to change faster than I think any other demand has caused.
Well, yeah, I'm kind of curious. Like I always thought it was interesting, like from watching old, like not like I'm not an adult, but like when I look at the big kids and the actual adult, like, you know, people who grew up in the 60s, right? Like there was a clear divide, like, okay, you're either smoking it or you're not. And the people who did, that was like, ooh, super taboo. And I felt like that was, you know, kind of the case for a long time. And I grew up in California, so it was a little bit different and more of a bubble. But you see the same people who thought it was taboo back then still think it's taboo today. And you're just like, well, no, not really. It's like legal now. And now there's all this proven, you know, greatness around it. Like there's all these, you know, scientific studies on how good it is for people. And you watch these amazing videos on YouTube of like even people who like can't control their body anymore due to nervous system kind of things, who then, you know, medicate themselves and they can actually just sit there comfortably, which is amazing. So yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see and how that correlates to the medical related stuff and how we can play a role as developers, designers, and how we can kind of push that forward. Cool, guys. Well, I'm going to cut it there. Thank you guys for joining. If this is your first time, make sure to subscribe on YouTube to our channel. Hit like below the video and make sure to tune in next week. I will see you guys later. Thanks for joining, you guys.
Yay, thanks for joining. Bye.